being a jerk. It's a hobby.
So that's how we're going to start this.
Welcome everybody to Young Justice Memory. Allow me to introduce our marvelous panelists. Down here we have Jennifer L. Anderson, who was the talent coordinator for Young Justice. Jennifer Jones, who was a storyboard artist on season 4, and also is the artist on all the Young Justice comics. Sarah Puzzle, who was the voice of, let's see, Halo, Hawkwoman, Harper Row,
Leon,
Cassandra Savage,
Talia, Martha Kent,
Wendy Jones.
I have several publicists in the audience.
And Dark
Do your
Side.
job for you.
Hi.
This is Aaron Robinson, who was a consultant for us on Young Justice, especially on the episode where Clark and Lois had to talk to Jonathan about death.
Yep.
And Mr. Thom Adcox, the voice of Clarion the Witchboy. And my name is Greg Weisman, and I worked on the show too. So, this is once again a panel moderated by Greg Weisman, which means we have prepared
absolutely nothing.
Thank you. You're getting so good at that. I'd like to actually talk a little bit about that episode and how we developed it and how we worked on it. Aaron can talk a little bit about the theory of why we did what we did. And then pretty much before we get to that, the one thing I do want to just get out of the way, because I can hear the question bubbling up even as I speak. I want to make this clear, we'd all like to bring Young Justice back. Everyone at this table, pretty much anyone who ever worked on the show, lots of people at Warner Brothers, and even DC. That doesn't seem to be on the table right now. I'm not saying it can't ever happen, because hey, we were canceled for 5 years and they brought us back. So you never know, but right now that doesn't seem to be part of Warner Brothers' overall game plan. So any questions you have about, well, could you bring Young Justice back or stuff? There's no world in which that's a decision I get to make. If there was, we wouldn't have stopped making it in the first place. But second of all, we just don't have any answers. It's not like we're keeping information from you. There's no big secret. They just aren't working on it right now. They haven't said never, but they also haven't said go, do it. And so let's sort of just skip over those kind of questions, because they're not going to do anything but bum us all out.
Is it true you canceled the show to avoid bringing back Wally West?
See, now I'm all bummed out. The other thing that I want to say is that we are happy to talk about process. We're happy to talk about any of the episodes or the comics or even the video game that already are out there. Please don't ask, well, what's going to happen if you do get to do it again? What's going to happen next? I'm not going to tell you. I don't give out spoilers, and because I do think it's possible the show might come back in some way, shape, or form. And don't even start, Joe. Don't look like so innocent. Look what you just did. He's trying to come up with a good one-liner. You can see it in his eyes.
No, the truth is I had story pitches.
So again, don't ask for spoilers. They're just not going to come. And again, all you'll do is just, bum us all out. So, but again, process, happy to talk about. And any questions about anything that's already done, happy to talk about that. And again, the first thing I just want to talk about is this one episode. We had this storyline in season 4 where for half a season, the audience as well as the characters all thought Connor was dead, Superboy. And then partway through the season, we revealed that he was actually trapped in the Phantom Zone. There are spoilers here, so those of you who are spoiler wary, I probably should have warned you before I said that.
You had 2 years to watch it, people.
Yeah, I don't feel guilty, but anyway. And we were aware that, this would, be devastating to, obviously, Miss Martian and to all of Connor's friends, but also to his family, and also this would be an issue for Connor's nephew, Jonathan Kent, the son of Superman and Lois. And so we had some discussions about how we should talk to Jonathan on the show about what was going on. Do you want to address that?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
So I teach 5-year-olds mostly, and it's really important to me that any kind of challenging conversation that comes about when you're dealing with children is faced head-on with respect, with transparency, and with appropriate language, but isn't shoved aside or, lied about. And I think a lot of grown-ups tend to assign their personal experiences to really surprising questions or really tricky questions, especially about death, because there's so much that's unknown about it, or many different opinions or beliefs about it, and so many really upsetting personal experiences connected to it. But often when a young child, especially a child like Jonathan, is asking questions, they're asking as if they're a scientist. They're trying to just learn what it means. It's a new concept, it's a new word. A lot of grown-ups use metaphors to talk about death, and 4, 5, and 6-year-olds are very literal. I talk a lot about the phrase pass away when I'm educating grown-ups about this. Pass away, moved on, phrases like that often are very comforting to grown-ups, but it's so confusing to a child. I started studying this when I was teaching and we had a class guinea pig. I do not recommend getting a class guinea pig. They die in spectacularly loud ways in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And so you have to have a conversation about that, obviously, and my co-teacher was very nervous about having a conversation about that. But the students really just wanted to understand what was happening. And for grown-ups, for anyone who's experienced death in any way, any other death is going to bring up those memories and those feelings, and that can be really painful and really hard. And that's the hardest part about having these conversations, is trying to separate those feelings from the science. And you can share with the child, I have really big feelings about this. You can show them those big feelings. It's really important that children can see that adults have big feelings. So often children are told not to. And that's how you get grown-ups who have a hard time when we have those feelings. So when my dad came to ask me about the kinds of language he could use talking to this child character, it was really important to me as an educator that you use the actual science words. So you use the word death, you use the word die, and you talk about death as scientific as you can. When Cuddles the guinea pig died in my classroom, we had a very serious but gentle conversation about it. We looked at his body. Thankfully, he was just very still looking. But we looked at him and I talked about how in any living creature's body, there are many different parts that work together to keep the body alive. And when you're alive, you can breathe, and you can play, and you can have feelings. And when you're dead, you aren't breathing anymore, you aren't feeling anymore, and you aren't interacting with the other people and creatures who you used to be. And I'm sorry if this is bringing up a lot of feelings for you. I've had lectures like this, and I always get grown-ups who come up to me afterwards, and it hits us all in different ways. So if you need a break, I completely understand. But then children have an opportunity to ask questions instead of feel shame or confusion secretly inside, and then they grow up really unsure about who they can go to for any topic, or if they're feeling really sad, who they can go to with those feelings. So I felt really proud that I got to help in this way, and that you really used those scientific words, not only for any young person watching the show, but maybe for grown-ups who have to unfortunately have these conversations with children. I really highly recommend just any conversation, bringing it down to the most scientific level. And then if you are part of a community or a family who has religious beliefs, or there are cultural practices that you tie in with these conversations, like specifically about death, you can share those with your child. As a teacher, I'm not sharing my personal beliefs in that way, but I taught at a Jewish school, so we would talk about how Jewish people believed, and if the children had different beliefs at home, we would recommend that they talk about those with their families, and then you warn the parents so that the kids don't go home and spring these conversations on them. But I think y'all did such a beautiful job, and it's such a hard episode, and you navigated it so beautifully.
So a couple of things that we did, again, with Aaron's advice, is we start out the episode where Clark and Lois and Jonathan are home in Smallville with Ma and Pa Kent, and with Wolf, who is their big, giant wolf. And Ma Kent sort of, in essence, oh, you played Ma Kent too.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
I think I did like one line as her in one episode. I don't know if she talked in this episode.
I think she did.
Then what-
You did.
She did.
I don't know. It was a long time ago.
I thought it was you, but maybe I'm wrong.
It was.
It was.
Thank you, publicist.
I trust them. On this subject. So she sort of rings the dinner bell, so to speak, and
there's a memory.
calls everyone to dinner, and Clark has a tractor bench pressed over his head. He's like, well, we're just going to put the tractor in the barn, and Ma's like, oh no, I know you two. You'll get to working on that tractor, and you won't be in for dinner for an hour or something. And then little Johnny says, and is Uncle Connor coming to dinner? And everyone freezes. And very carefully, Clark says, Johnny, we told you Uncle Connor passed away. In other words, we intentionally used the wrong language first. And we see what Johnny's reaction. He's like, yeah, he passed away from our home. So is this where he's coming instead? Or something like that. And so you see that the sort of euphemisms that adults tend to use for themselves are not great for children. That they need to actually use the words. And so in the next scene, Clark sits down and he goes through the language that Aaron just used, that Uncle Connor's dead, his body stopped working, so he won't be playing with us, he won't be visiting us anymore, he won't be playing with us anymore. And Johnny's reaction is like, huh, because it's him processing this sort of thing. And then Ma Kent says, and we believe that we'll meet again. I don't remember the exact words, I assume you do.
Well, just deliver the line now for us.
She's too verklempt to do it.
Absolutely.
And again, that was the idea that first you get the science in, and we were very careful to say, and we believe, not like, and then the fact is this Christian dogma. It's like, this is what we believe. So that what we had just given could still apply to everyone. So what we were trying to do is we modeled first bad behavior.
Not bad, not bad. Well-meaning,
But incorrect.
but not
Unhelpful.
Not useful. Then we
Unhelpful.
sort of did it, what we think are his best practices, and then the add-on was just to show that that's not independent from everyone's faith or belief or that kind of thing. It can work with that, but you separate, in essence, the science from the faith. And we were really, really proud of that episode, and very grateful to Aaron. And more recently, I had an episode on Transformers Earthspark where we also brought Aaron in to consult, and we had actually gotten a bunch of notes. We didn't have S&P executives on Young Justice Season 4 because we were a streaming show, and Max wasn't paying attention to what we were doing. But you know, we had gotten all these S&P notes on the Earthspark episode that were literally, I knew from having done this with Aaron before, that were literally wrong. Like, instead of saying dead, can you use passed away? And I'm like, that is literally the wrong thing to do. And so Erin recorded this podcast. So we had her listen, the S&P executive listen to the podcast, and offered, and we turned it around and did it right. So sometimes the system works.
Every now and then.
Anyway, I wanted to get that in because I wanted you to know that there was a real reason for my daughter to be on the panel.
nepotism.
Right.
Other than that.
But mostly this is a Q&A, so we'll start way back there with the hashtag.
Do you think more cartoons would benefit children by using those words? Like, I know a lot of times you say destroy or defeat and then kill or die. Would it be better for kids to know that if more cartoons would say die and kill?
I think kill is a complicated one, especially in cartoon shows where they're not showing the consequences of the destruction. We as grown-ups assign kill and die to some of those things, but I think it's intentionally left vague in a lot of those cartoon shows. But I do agree that the word die, death, especially in, like, if you're using pass away, moved on, those kinds of phrases, I think death and died is much more helpful. But I also think it needs to be couched in that really intentional other supportive language, so it's not just like, and we killed them and they're dead, and then that's it. And then the kids are like, I don't know what that means, and grown-ups listening aren't suddenly panicked because now they have to shoulder the burden of explaining what that means. So I think overall, yes, using the most scientific language is the most useful, especially for children like 3 to 7 years old, but it needs to be intentional.
So, Halo has one hell of a character arc over the course of season 3 and 4. There's so much to talk about.
And you should have seen her during 1 and 2.
On the faith side, gender identity, but I do want to talk a bit about the decision, which made me very happy, to have them and Harper Row ultimately find each other, and also I want to know Zara's opinion on being shipped with herself.
I'm into it. Well, I can speak to part of that, unless you want to kick it off.
No, you said.
Halo's journey was really interesting. So initially, when I was offered the part, all I knew about her at that time was that she was a reimagining of the comic book character, who was a blonde-haired gal from, I think, Wisconsin or Missouri. And she was reimagined in this iteration as the body of a young refugee girl from Kurak, a fictional Middle Eastern country in the DC universe, who was inhabited by a mother box alien entity that has no gender. And basically the reanimated corpse of this young woman, Gabrielle Dow, who's gone, dead, passed away. Gosh, it's really hard.
There it is. Yeah.
Gabrielle died, and the mother box, who then became Halo, Violet Harper, that's who the character was. And I was really excited, and that's pretty much all I knew was that. The journey that
Because that wasn't enough.
And I was really excited. It was a direct offer, and I think Greg had written the role with me in mind, which was hugely flattering. And wow, what a huge responsibility. I am now in the first session of something I did not audition for. So we kind of had to find the voice and find the feel and essence of the character on that first day. And it was also my first time working with Jamie Thomason, a prolific voice director of Gargoyles and just countless properties. And it was a bit intimidating to figure all that out kind of cold on the first day. But it was also really exciting to really craft something original and, you know, figure it out together. What was the feel of this character? We record a new episode every couple weeks, and every couple weeks I would learn a little bit more about Halo that I didn't know the week before. And so some of the things that happened to them throughout their journey, their exploration of Islam, their exploration of their gender identity, their budding relationships with various people, hot lava, and Geoforce, and their friendship with Cyborg, and then Harper Row. It was such a treat to play Harper. I was initially hired to play Halo, but because this show has a huge cast of characters and a limited budget to hire a certain number of actors per episode, a lot of us ended up double, triple parting per episode. And so it just so happened, Jamie approached me to play Harper Row, and I kind of thought her sarcastic, laid-back attitude to kind of mask that deep stuff that was going on with her and her brother at home. Was really fun, and a really fun contrast to Halo, who's up here and bubbly and blah, blah, blah. And it did not occur to me that there was anything more than a friendship until that scene in that episode later in season 3 on the beach. Which, for those of you who followed the Young Justice kind of discourse, know that there was a lot of polarizing reactions to that particular scene. On the page and in the performance, nothing stood out to me as problematic because I thought, oh, these two characters are headed somewhere interesting. And I think what's so amazing about Greg and Brandon Vietti, they are so open and desirous of consultation. And before season 4 production started, we went out to lunch and chatted about Halo and where Halo was headed. And as a Muslim myself, I was happy to provide my perspective, but I also realize, any group or community of people, it's not a monolith. I'm one iteration of Muslim. There are other Muslims who might think and interpret things differently. And I connected Greg and Brandon with MPAC, the Muslim Public Affairs Council, which is this excellent consultation group in Hollywood that provides support to television shows and consultation and connects them with other Muslim writers. And they worked together on season 4 and actually got a couple different Muslim writers in the writer's room. So there was more than one Muslim point of view in the crafting of Muslim characters. And it was also in that lunch where I was like, I'm really interested in this Halo Harper thing. What you guys were starting to establish in season 3, is that gonna continue in season 4? And that was kind of the genesis of that conversation from my point of view.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that Brandon and I, but I have to say, Brandon probably even more than I, we were just sort of fascinated with the ramifications of Halo. In other words, okay, you've got this new entity who was formerly this box, and now,
The TARDIS, basically.
you know, it's all electronics, and now this soul is in this organic body. That's a very different experience for Motherbox, for Violet Harper. And so we talked a lot, Brandon and I, about, you know, there are chemicals going through the body. You know, there are hormones, and there are all sorts of different factors, feelings that never existed for a Motherbox are now existing for Violet. And what would her reactions be to that? Well, maybe she'd be overwhelmed by it at first, and maybe that would mess with her powers at a moment, particularly when she's under crisis, like Vic is possessed by a father box and trying to kill her. We thought about, okay, Harper asks her, for example, on that scene, the beach, you know, about the alcohol, you know, oh, you don't want to drink because you're Muslim. And actually, I had to make her, for Harper, say Muslim.
Yeah, I had to pronounce it wrong. I mean, no, if you pronounce it that way, no worries. But like Muslim, I forget how it was. Muslim is kind of the preferred pronunciation I have and what I heard growing up. So yeah, the intention to get it wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that sometimes on purpose. We get it wrong on purpose. To educate, because it's both she's, but Violet then corrects Harper, but also says, I'm not a Muslim. Because she's not. Now that shocked a whole bunch of people, but this was a mother box inside inside Gabrielle's body. And so then it was like, well, then why is she wearing a hijab? And so we had talked to MPAC about all this, and it's like lots of young Muslim women wear the hijab while they're deciding whether or not to wear the hijab. And we hadn't spoken to that yet because we didn't feel like she had gotten that far down the path yet. And at the same time, the same thing was true with both her gender identity and her gender orientation. And so we began to explore these things at what we felt was a nice pace that made sense for the character and for the show, which made less sense for Twitter, it seems. And we got slammed pretty hard for things that we were intending to move forward, but I guess we weren't doing it fast enough.
And I want to speak to that because
Oh boy.
representation, it's a lot of representation for one character. The idea of when you watch media, if you watch a piece of media now, there's also the burden of representation and getting it right? But what does that mean? What does that mean? Because it's not going to be right for everyone.
Nope.
And when you're only viewing things in terms of this is through the lens of representation, then you don't trust the story to unfold the way and the pace and the intention the story and the storytellers have in mind. And it would burn me up inside reading some of these comments I would see on Twitter, because one, I couldn't respond, and two, don't these people know Greg Weisman's work? Like, he is the person to trust. He is not the man that you should be angry at. Like, it just, you know, and so I think in this age where there is such, you know, and this came out in 2018, right? Mm-hmm. And at that point, 2019, thank you. There was such a lack of, and still is to some extent, but it was really starting to proliferate in animation, Muslim appearing characters. I know because I voiced a ton of them. And it was like people were so craving to see the thing. If there's only one of the thing, or a few of the things, then people glom onto that as this is the only thing I have as a Muslim that represents me. So if they, God forbid, get it wrong in some way, then wow, they are really insulting me. That was kind of the Twitter reactionary, and I get it, because when there isn't a lot, you put so much burden of responsibility on the one thing that is there. And that's what is a complex, nuanced part of this whole representation and diversity discussion that just doesn't happen online. And it doesn't happen a ton, like, to really talk about how there's so many different things that are true at the same time. It's a nuanced conversation that doesn't happen a lot. So, it was really hard to see.
It's so strange that Twitter isn't good at nuance.
Shocking. It's incredibly puzzling.
If it takes more than 40 characters to say something, is it worth saying?
But I really give props to folks who hung in there and trusted us to tell the story. Because I think through season 4, in a way, that kind of controversy brought up a lot of interesting plot points for Halo for us to go deeper into those things, to explore those things more deeply than perhaps would have been had that attention not been so on it.
I think that's true.
Thank you.
The X over there?
You spoke about Connor earlier, and I myself am not fully into Young Justice. I have a lot of online friends who are, so I'm basically asking this question in place of them. Verbatim, a friend of mine asked why they made Connor straight in terms of design. Verbatim, they took away his slayness, is what my friend said.
Slayness. It's a term the youth use. Tom's always been full of slay.
I think it's a fair, if I'm understanding it right, old fart that I am.
It's like Riz.
I've heard that.
Slay like Santa Claus?
They speak a whole new language. You need to translate. I can translate too.
No, but I think I get it. I don't know who Riz is, but I think
Riz is short for charisma.
It's like,
oh, it's not a person. It's like Rizzo from Greece.
Rizzo has Riz, though.
I think he has charisma, but I do think that we did a severe reinterpretation of the character, and I think that's true. We decided to get down to the core of what Brandon and I thought the character was. Brandon and I and Phil Barassa designed it. And we decided that what was core about him was he believed, at least at the beginning, that he was the clone of Superman and that he had been sort of programmed to take Superman's place, and that would define that lack of, as he was raised, that lack of warmth would come out as a lot of anger. And I think that a lot of people at the beginning were thought, oh, he's just going to be the angry guy for the whole time. But in fact, you know, we had a game plan for Connor too. That did not include him wearing a cool leather jacket from the 90s with 87 buckles on it.
Very spiky hairstyle.
Yeah, we decided that would make, that he would, particularly after he'd been, from his point of view, rejected by Superman, that he would be, God bless you, he would simplify. So he wore, you know, we did, in a comic we showed him buy 28 black T-shirts with the Superman symbol at Forever 16 Suburban Outfitters. And I thought that was a pretty cool hip joke. And we decided that, you know, he'd wear jeans or he would wear sort of military cargo style pants kind of thing. And then at one point, Phil put him in this sort of members only leather jacket, which we all pretty much immediately realized was a mistake, that it was just like not in tune with what he was. And we continued to grow this character, and I think if you get through season 3, and even the first 4 episodes of season 4, Connor becomes the most zen of all our cast. And just to emphasize that, we talked about once they graduated college, what would they be doing for a living? And so, you know, McGann, Miss Martian, she's working at the high school as a guidance counselor. We had that great scene between Harper and McGann, which we used another consultant, my ex-sister-in-law, who we're kind of mad at, but we're not going into that. But she was a great consultant for the show, talking to us about how kids avoid discussing the abuse they're suffering. And that they have code words that they use among themselves.
Roughhousing.
Roughhousing. Oh, how'd you get that bruise? Oh, me and my brother were roughhousing. And that's code for, yeah, whoever the abuser is, hit me. But if I say that, you're a mandatory reporter, you have to tell. But if I say it was roughhousing, you know what that means, but you can't prove that I'm lying. And so we did this whole thing with that. I'm on a tangent. Where'd I go?
Slayness.
And so for Connor, Brand and I were talking, I said, we saw him working on his bike even before he got Supercycle Sphere, and we thought, no, he's not going to be a reporter like Clark. He's going to be a mechanic. And we decided that he, repaired custom and rebuilt custom motorcycles. And for me, growing up, there was this book, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And I'm like, that's perfect because he's our Zen guy. And I love the fact that we took a character who at age 16, he was really 6 months old, but at age 16 was this angry character who a lot of people assumed was just going to be this sort of boring one-note guy. And we took him through all these paces so that by the time you get to season 3, he's kind of this lovely, zen, calm individual, and he was just so great that we decided to kill him off in season 4. But we loved him, and so really he was just in a fan zone. And
loved him more than Wallace.
You mentioned the origin of his T-shirts. I noticed when the show came back for season 3 that his shirt was being colored a slightly lighter gray than it had been. And I had a chance to ask Phil Ross. I was like, was that just an adjustment to the art style, or are you thinking that the shirt is fading because it's old and he's worn it a lot? So yeah, it's fading.
Damn washing machine.
Yeah.
yeah.
Jedi?
Yeah, I just had a small question that sort of bounced off that one. So, you obviously have a lot of characters from other beloved shows, Teen Titans, Static Shock. I was just wondering if those shows, like how much of those shows are taken into account when taking a character from that and putting it into this for like recognition from the audience or just character development?
Actually the reverse. We tried not to. I mean, sometimes we do a wink, like when we did the Doom Patrol. The 5 members of the regular cast of Teen Titans.
That was
Teen
hysterical.
Titans Go. As kind of a wink.
Yeah.
We decided which 6 Justice Leaguers were going to be sent by Vandal Savage to Rimbor, and we chose the minus Flash because that didn't fit for us, but we chose the 6 Justice Leaguers that were regulars in the
Lord,
Justice League
basically.
TV series, because, yeah, that's fun for us, but for the most part, we're trying not to do that. We're trying to sort of look at any individual character, whether it's Cyborg, who's appeared in 8 million other things, or Superman, who's appeared in 8 billion other things, and try and think what for us is core about the character. What is it that is essential and must be there, and what is it that shouldn't be there? For example, super breath. Again, that's, you're adapting a property that has existed. Some of them, like Superman, have existed since 1938. That's a lot of writers, a lot of artists, a lot of editors, a lot of corporate philosophies over the years about what that character should and shouldn't be, and they don't all mesh. And so we have to sort of create a coherent, cohesive view of any of these given characters. And look, if something fits or seems to work from another piece of media, I'm not shy about borrowing that. I'm sure there was stuff, Cheshire. We really like the Cheshire mask that was created for the Teen Titans show. It didn't exist in the comics, but we thought, A, it really fit her personality, and B, we wanted for at least a big chunk of her first appearance for Artemis not to know who she was. And so the mask really helped us with that. We didn't come up with it, but we just thought that works for this character, let's use that. But we didn't we didn't use Static because, he had his own show once. We used Static because we loved the character, and we thought he really fit with what we were trying to do. Also, we were riffing on Super Friends and Static.
Yeah.
Fit the Black Vulcan.
Yeah. This one's for Zara and Thom. Zara, at your panel earlier today, you were talking about, or earlier yesterday, I think, you mentioned how physical position and manipulation can affect your vocal performance. I wanted to ask about when Cassandra was wearing the glamour charm. So she looked very damaged and destroyed, but actually wasn't.
Yeah.
But did you physically do anything or deliberately avoid anything because she wasn't actually injured? How did that work, basically?
Yeah. First of all, I want to shout out, is it Logan Maurice, who played brilliant actress who was in, was it Dear White People? She was the voice of, who was the other person in that arc? Onyx! Thank you. A lot of my recording sessions for that arc were with her and Stephanie Lemon, who plays Artemis. And they are both such gifted actors, so reading across from them, you get so much information from their delivery, and it's so easy to just respond. I remember specifically with Cassandra, if I recall, one of her arms was missing in with the glamour charm. I do remember in that recording session putting whatever arm that was behind, so I had that sense of the imbalance and that sense of that burning. A lot of Cassandra is a chip on her shoulder. And there was that sort of burning desire for revenge. I was always reminded that even though she was active, she was an excellent actor, I was always reminding myself, like, I've lost something. I can't do everything I used to do because of this, and I need revenge for this. So that was something I really specifically remember doing, was taking away the arm that was not there anymore. Because I just like getting into the character, too. It's just also fun to do.
Excellent. And for Thom, my question, what was it like being Clary on the Magic School Bus?
Dang it. That was fun. I was like, what? So, yeah, I loved it. I had a great time doing it.
I'm glad.
It was fun.
I want to bring Jennifer into the conversation. She was a big part of, particularly in season 1, the original casting of the show. And so I'm sort of curious as to what your memory is of that piece of the process.
The the initial casting.
Yeah,
Um,
and, you know, the first few episodes, that kind of thing.
that was, well, one of the, like the memory that stands out the most is your trepidation over Carrie Payton.
Really?
Carrie Payton.
Yeah.
That you were concerned because he was cyborg. You didn't want that, and he came in and had a reading that was absolutely nothing like cyborg, and you nailed it. But it's a lot of fun watching it when you're doing the first season and you have to do the auditions and you're bringing everyone in and like having to filter out through that and, you know, see which ones are gonna actually fit for it. It's a very interesting process. Whereas like once you get the show going, then you're just picking people that you think are going. But those base ones are important.
Yeah, it's true. Kari, most people, when they come into audition, you know, they have to win the audition, but they start at a neutral point. Kari actually started in the hole. In other words, Brandon and I had serious concerns about casting anyone from the original, from the Teen Titans cast, because we were, as a regular, not like, you know, down the road if someone came in and did a voice, that was fine. But we, you know, we were like, you know, we don't want to be compared to Teen Titans. We don't want to be compared to Justice League Unlimited. And so for Kari to come in and win that role, which he did on sheer talent and the intelligence of his choices, was kind of amazing. I mean, I adore Kari. Now he's one of my closest friends, but I didn't know him back then. And I remember Phil Lamar.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Phil was like, he's told me this later, so Phil also auditioned, and probably, I don't usually like to talk about this, probably would have been our second choice for the part, and he just felt like, wait, you're doing Aqualad who's black? That should be my role. And he said this, and then he goes, and then then we cast him as Aquaman, and he came in to play Aquaman, sort of like, I don't understand why I didn't get that role. And then he heard Kari, he's like, oh, now I get it. That was an interesting experience also, because I don't know if you remember this, but and I don't remember the actor's name, and there's probably a reason for that, but when he came in, we had audition sheets that had images of the characters on it, and this guy auditioned for Aqualad, and he posted it on Twitter. What? You know, in a vacuum, and so then suddenly we're getting all this stuff about, oh, they're making Blackwolad, and they're, I'm not kidding, and you know, the internet took it very calmly, or maybe the reverse of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was reversed.
And you know, it's out of context, so they have no sense of what we're going to do, but everyone's angry. And then everyone else is angry at all the people who are angry. And it just becomes this huge fucking thing that has nothing to do with our show, really. But what we did from then on, when we cast for season 2, I made up a show called Storm Ninjas.
Storm Ninjas in the radio audition.
Right, you know, and so Impulse was Woman Ninja, and the second Robin was, I forget, but Static was Lightning Ninja, and Thunder Ninja, and whatever. I made up this entire show so that we could cast without revealing anything. And later, when we were doing Star Wars Rebels, and let me tell you, if you think Warner Brothers is worried about that, Lucasfilm is like, oh my God. So they're like, how do we even audition for this show? How do we hold auditions? we can't let any of this get out. And I said, well, this is what we did on, and so I created a whole other show called Wolf Riders. Which was pandering to Dave Filoni, who just loves that shit. And he got very enthusiastic about Wolf Riders, and for a second I thought, he doesn't want to do Rebels. He came to his senses eventually, but that became like a thing we were doing then for security reasons, is I kept having to make up new shows.
I remember for season 3, there was a casting I got. I was already on the show recording, and I got a casting from my agent for a show called like Jack and Jill or something. Jack in the Box, reading for the part of Jill. And so I read it, and then later, when I got a script, I was not cast as Jill. I found out that the Jack in the Box was a code for Young Justice, and they were casting for another character on that season. I'm like, oh, I would not have auditioned for this if I knew it was my show, but I'm on.
We were casting for 3 characters. One was Cyborg, and that ended up being Zeno Robinson.
Woo!
Oh, yeah.
And Zeno was the one guy who looked at it and said, "Nah, this is Cyborg."
Didn't fool him at all.
No, didn't fool him at all.
Nope.
We fooled her, and she worked on the show.
I'm very easily fooled.
Dang.
We also had a hard time finding a Miss Martian.
Oh yeah. Danica was a great choice.
Before we found Danica, went through a bunch of people. And one of the things that's always interesting for me about the casting process is that you hear a lot of people, some you've heard before and some are new to you, and it always, and you sit there and you go, no, this isn't right for this character. But, so like, Crispin Freeman came in to read for Superboy and Superman, and I'd worked with Crispin before, we love Crispin, but he just wasn't
I brought Crispin into
my life.
your life.
Thank you.
Well, I stopped
For me,
him
it
for
was
a while.
2000.
Yeah. But I brought him to the 2001 Gargoyles convention to
I was at his mug, I guess.
Yep.
Love it.
I was at his dinner table. We can talk later.
Crispin does a great Broadway, by the way.
Yes,
Does.
he does.
Really excellent Broadway.
Top notch.
You know, he read for, so we only auditioned 7 parts. We auditioned our original 6 leads, which was Artemis, Aqualad, Robin, Kid Flash, Miss Martian, and then, no, we didn't audition Red Arrow. Superboy and Superman, and the only reason we were doing Superman is because we knew we needed the same actor to be able to play both roles, because it's the same voice box. One's a little older, one's a little younger, their attitudes are very different, but it had to really be
Sound like the same person.
Yeah, it had to be the same person. So anyone who auditioned for Superboy also had to audition for Superman and vice versa. And Crispin auditioned, tried out for, I think Crispin tried out for all the male roles, frankly.
Yeah.
But, you know, he wasn't quite right for any of them, but I liked how he played. The vocal quality wasn't right for Superman and Superboy, but I liked how he played the contrast between the two. And so when we were casting, and again, you don't have time to audition every character. So when we were casting Red Arrow, and we knew that he was a clone, and that the Guardian was going to be another clone, and that we would eventually introduce Speedy who was the original, and we knew we'd have to find an actor who could play all of those. We're like, it's not right for Superboy Superman.
This is where he belongs.
This is where he is, and so we brought him in the first episode to play Speedy. Or Roger Craig Smith came in, who is fantastic, and he played, he auditioned for Superboy and Superman. Again, not quite right, but we really liked his vocal quality, and I had not worked with Roger before Young Justice, and he, you know, we cast him as Ocean Master.
He's also Sonic the Hedgehog.
And the voice of Say Yes to the Dress for the first 14 seasons. He narrates that show.
There's something I didn't know.
And Montana.
And Mirage and Apex Legends. This is the Roger Craig Smith fan hour.
So Lacey Chabert auditioned for Miss Martian, and you know, I'd worked with Lacey on Spider-Man as Gwen Stacy, and I loved Lacey, but she just wasn't quite right for Miss Martian. But I was like, there's our Zatanna. I mean, I knew it right then. We just had to wait.
You come in for these parts and like you're auditioning and stuff, but just because you don't get that part doesn't mean that these people didn't see you.
Or at least here.
Yeah, well, here, yeah. Sometimes it was seen, but most of the time it's here. But they're hearing what you're putting out there, and they know what their cast is going to be down the line. So you file in the way.
Yeah, Blaze.
Hey, you mentioned the magic school bus. So, at what point did you know that school bus was the same one bopping through time and space under the control of a crazed witchboard?
So there are two ways to look at it. You could say, oh, they're cheap bastards. They needed to put a school bus in danger, so they just kept using the same school bus, even though it said Metropolis on it, in every city, with the same school bus driver and all the same kids. Or you can think that we planned it all from the beginning. And I'm happy to leave that to your imagination, but I do make the point, as cheap as bastards as we are, and we are, because we have to be, it wouldn't have been hard to change the side of the bus from Metropolis to Star City. So the fact that we didn't, and the fact that we made a point of showing the faces of the individuals inside that bus should give you an indication that this time we had a plan. Yeah.
So this is for Chris. Oh, I know. So can you talk about the transition from how you got the comic book job, and then the transition from going to the comic book to actually working on the show?
Well, very quickly, the previous series I did before Young Justice was The Batman Strikes, which was the time comic for The Batman. And the way I'd gotten that was when they first announced it, I thought, well, I know how this works. DC will do a time comic. If I can find out who the editor for that's going to be, I can hit them up for the job before anything else happens. But because by the time they announce the book, they'll have a agreement to be in place. And I did that, and it worked, and I got the job. So I met Greg. We had done minimal amount of comics work together. I heard that he was going to be on this new show, Young Justice. Like, oh, it would be cool to work on a comic for that. By the time I could find out who the editor was, they already had a credit team in place. So disappointment, wasn't going to get to work on it. They showed the 2-part premiere. It was awesome. The comic book was about to start coming out, and I found out the artist they'd originally assigned was going to a different project, and I was asked if I was still interested in doing it, and could I come on and take over. So starting with issue 5, I was the main artist for the rest of the series. So that was great. The other part was the transition from moving to the show.
Yeah.
Was I mean, obviously, I had done.
And I mean, what kind of a different process is it for you?
Well, vastly different process. I had done a minimal amount of animation storyboard stuff before, but not in a really professional capacity, not with the digital tools that the production uses. So that was an incredibly steep learning curve to figure out in a hurry. But obviously the fact that I had experience with visual storytelling and some animation and film stuff, and then having drawn the Justice comic, was probably the best preparation I could have had. And thankfully, both Greg and Brandon Vietti actually were both very supportive about not only me coming on board, but giving me the opportunity to really learn, different animation roles.
I should say, we were like his angels. We brought him out, encouraged him to leave his life behind, move to Los Angeles right before a pandemic, 2 strikes, and then a massive depression in the animation industry.
Yeah.
Aren't we good to him?
Glorious.
Just thinking about it brings a tear to my eye.
We laugh so we don't.
Yeah, right here.
So, you were mentioning casting, and then Jesse McCartney was the Grayson.
He still is in my mind.
Yeah. Were you thinking?
She was very excited about that, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, 2009, 2010, she was very excited about Jesse McCartney.
I'm still excited.
He must have Riz.
Yeah. I don't know if y'all remember Hit.
Please don't ever do that again.
He was on my hit list.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
So, did he have, I guess, I don't know him as a singer, did he have like enough name recognition where that's what you wanted and he agreed, or like was he busy doing song things and like couldn't film? Like how was it working with it?
Well, we rarely filmed our actors. No, he auditioned. Right? I mean, he auditioned and he got the role. One thing we did, really subtle, was in the first season, we pitched his voice up slightly because Jesse was, I mean, he wasn't an old guy, he was probably 24, I don't know, but in any event, he was playing a 13-year-old and he just sounded a little too deep initially, but otherwise, in every other way, he had the character, so we just pitched him up with science. No, with technology, we just pitched him up slightly in season 1 because we knew in season 2 he'd be Nightwing.
Yeah.
You know, we knew we were doing this time jump, and so we were like, okay, and then starting in season 2, we won't mess with his voice anymore, and that'll be nice to show the transition from the 13-year-old to the 18-year-old, or 19-year-old, or whatever it was. But yeah, he just auditioned. I'm not saying he was never unavailable, because who remembers, but he came in, for the most part, week after week, just like
I
everybody
never
else.
remember him not, the first season, I never remember him not being available.
Yeah, me neither. So he had singing gigs and acting gigs. And one thing, though, that was true, we had that episode with the Reach for a Reach commercial. The song, and then we thought, oh, we'll have Jesse sing the thing, and we couldn't do that because Jesse singing was under contract to some record company. And
Not Warner Music.
even if it was Warner Music probably would have said, screw you. I don't know. But it was just something that, it's not that it was impossible for us to get him to sing, but it was just like this hassle beyond belief with all this paperwork, and so we just had Jason do it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we had Jason do the. Oh no, it wasn't Jason. It was.
James Marsden.
Was it Jason Marsden?
Yeah, it was Jason Marsden.
Jason Marsden.
Yeah.
Or was it Kevin Michael Richardson?
That was Jason Marsden.
Kevin Michael Richardson did Hello Megan.
Oh, you're right. That's right.
We don't have to know anything. Wikipedia is right here. Love it.
Jason Marsden sang that instead because he's not under a singing contract. But yeah, that was the only issue with Jesse, was that we thought, oh, he's a singer, we'll have him sing. Nope. But otherwise.
But did he whelm you?
Jesse overwhelmed me.
Okay, so Phantom, that whole season, I swear to God, you touched on every subject I was probably going on through in my life. The grief, the Beast Boy going through survivor's guilt. So you were in my head for some weird reason, because I'm watching the season, I'm ready to cry. But what inspired you, possessed you, or anything to bring autism awareness to it? Because I like that. not a lot of people like to bring up that subject, especially
So,
out in the cartoon.
I think the other day, what did we say, woke in progress, was that it?
Yeah, woke in progress.
I think that's true for both Brandon and I, and we, historically, I mean, going back to Gargoyles, actually going back to Captain Adam, this is something, representation and diversity, and those are priorities for me. Those are also priorities for Brandon, and we just felt, how do I put this? Autism is.
Right, because that bus scene that you had in that, I had a similar experience, probably not in a bus, but
Subway
where
scene?
somebody sees my kid and they're thinking.
The subway.
Oh, Subway.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're
It just felt more trapped to us to put them in the subway than on a bus.
Right. So it's just, I've been in that situation where it's like I'm looking at people with like control your kid, and it's like you kind of want to just mama bear people, and that. So yeah, I like the fact that you threw that in there.
Yeah, and we consulted with multiple organizations. We consulted with one organization that is more parent-focused, and another organization that is focused on and represents autistic people. Again, one of the lessons that we've learned, and it took me, again, years to learn this lesson, is I always talked to people that we were representing, but I tended to talk to my actors. In other words, on Gargoyles, when we talked about Native American stuff, we would talk to Michael Horse, who was one of our actors on the show. And what ultimately became clear to me is that that wasn't fair to the actor. It's not fair for me to talk to her about these issues. It's nice for me to talk with her about it, but to sort of depend on her to do this, to represent that, to educate me, when I'm her employer, is shitty. But I didn't know that. I didn't know I was being shitty, at least not at first. Yeah. I mean, I kind of take it for granted that I'm always being shitty, but not.
I didn't feel like you were being shitty to me. But thank you, I appreciate it.
That's nice. So one of the things that we really started to learn around season 3 and season 4, which I don't think we were doing, is that why aren't we talking to experts? Why aren't we talking to organizations that represent this group or that group? And so that was something that we really learned to do. We talked to Glad about a bunch of stuff, and including the issue we talked about last night with the difference between a throuple and a triad. It's like, if we're going to do this, why not do it right? And I felt stupid that it took me so long to figure that out. But good intentions, but sometimes good intentions aren't enough, and you've got to do the work. And again, the thing with Beast Boy came out of a convention. I was at San Diego Comic-Con, and on a panel called The Psychology of Cartoon Characters. It was led by someone who became a sensitivity reader for us for all of season 4, but also a consultant, Dr. Janina Scarlett, who used to work with the VA with soldiers who were traumatized, who were suffering from PTSD from Iran and Iraq and Afghanistan. And I guess that job wasn't hard enough, so she switched over to talking to survivors of sexual assault. But one of the things that she does in her practice is she prescribes comic books or episodes of a cartoon show, because she found that with some patients who had difficulty talking about what had happened to them, if they could see it on an episode of Supernatural or an episode of Young Justice or Gargoyles or whatever, and they could go, that's my life. They start talking about Beast Boy and find themselves talking about themselves. And
so I said that season that was being like hell.
Well, also, we had people following you specifically.
I knew it!
Where'd you think all that money went?
I mean, that's why we had to have only one bus, you know. But, you know, and so I'm on a panel, and this guy stands up.
We have until 8:30.
What time are we supposed to be done?
Go until 8:30, you're fine. So the panel officially goes until 8. But I mean, the next panel that you're on is here at 8:30 anyway.
Okay. Panel, so let me finish this question. We'll take a 15-minute break or so, and then some of us are back here for Spider-Man, and some of you will be set free.
Released into the wild.
So a guy stood up, asked a question at this panel at San Diego Comic-Con, and he said, I'm a veteran of Iraq, and I want to know why I have PTSD, and I never see that on the shows that I watch. And I sat there, like, literally like the cartoon guy where the light bulb goes on over my head. And I'm like, Jesus, we should be doing that. Unfortunately, it was after the writing on season 3 was done and before we had a pickup for season 4, so I didn't have a show to do that on. But when we did get the pickup to season 4, that was a priority for me. And again, Brandon was all in on that. And we talked with Janine and we said, okay, this isn't going to be an episode. You can't do this in an episode. This is going to be a season-long arc. And even then, we were cheating. You know, taking him from all his past trauma through one more trauma that just puts him over the edge, and then managing to bring him partway out of it, even in the course of what was in essence 6 months, is ridiculous. But at least in television terms, we were giving it some time. And so you have this entire season where and one thing that we wanted to show is that, and this really was a priority for Brandon, is that well-meaning people can misinterpret what's wrong with someone. So what you see is Beast Boy seemingly acting out, acting like a jerk, acting like an ass, and you think it's because he's being a jerk. And what you don't realize is he's in trouble. And lots of different people see pieces of his behavior and don't necessarily realize what the whole picture is with him, because he is working really hard to hide that. He's not sleeping. He's not eating. He is taking over-the-counter medication and then moving from that into prescription drugs and other drugs. He is breaking off all his relationships and all his connections. And he's therapy savvy enough to resist first Miss Martian and then the big intervention. And then we gave, and I tell you, this performance from Greg Sipes, who I adore, but he's a nut. This performance from Greg Sipes and Vanessa Marshall as Garfield and Dinah, Beast Boy and Black Canary, in this one series of scenes in one episode. It's heartbreaking, just heartbreaking. I think the script is solid, I think it's strong, but oh my God, the two of them brought to that episode. And again, we're cheating a little. It's not as easy as we made it seem, but at least we didn't solve it in one 22-minute episode. And so again, that became a priority. Having the thing, again, that the internet got really mad at us about the autism episode is they're like, you know, you made this all about Raquel, not about her son. This isn't a story about autism. This is a story about the mom. And I'm like, yeah.
That's your
I'm like, I'm not saying we won't get to a story about an autistic superhero or an autistic, it's just that's not what this one was. This was a story about Raquel, who had certain expectations about what her son was going to be, and what he is different, not worse, not just different from what her expectations, and she has to start seeing him for what he is, as opposed to seeing him for what he is not. And so, again, it was very frustrating because it, again, the internet is not measured in the way it responds, and you know, I'm always willing to cop to a mistake. There was a moment in one episode, this got by me, I don't know how it got by me, where Raquel referred to Halo as she when Raquel should have used they.
At that point, they were using they.
Yeah, and that was a mistake. And so on the internet, I copped to it, and then I had people mad at me for copying to it. But that's fine. You you can't make everyone happy. But what was interesting to me is that when I make a mistake, I'm perfectly willing to cop to it. But I don't consider the Raquel story a mistake. It's just, it was about her. You know, she was one of our original season 1 heroes, and we were doing a season where each of our season 1 heroes gets their own arc. This one was about her, and her son is obviously a huge part of her life, but it wasn't a story about her son, it was a story about her as a parent coming to terms with things. And again, we just got slammed. And I'm okay with that, you know, because I believe in what we did. And I also want, as we go forward, and unfortunately, we didn't get a season 5, but we have ideas and plans for what we would do to further the representation of autism in the show. But I know and I get that there's an impatience for representation, which I totally understand and respect. But when we've got an existing show, in order to not make it feel artificial, we've got to make the growth and the change organic. Yeah, I know, I'm way over. But, all right, we are done with Young Justice. Come back in 15 minutes for Spider-Man.